I'm HelenaDay. I'm a subconscious master coach, helping leaders and entrepreneurs lead their lives with more clarity, peace, and abundance. I am very excited to be joining the Online Prosperity Show, where I'm going to be sharing all about my journey, which took me from a little town in the UK to my dream Bali villa and everything that I have learned along the way. I really hope that you will join me for this conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And today, we've got a guest whose journey is as transformative as it is inspiring. Now, Helena, how are you doing today?
I am doing very well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited because you had a very you've had a very fun journey so far, if I can say. All right, and you grew up in the UK, was that?
Yeah, originally I'm from the UK, although by my accent many people think I'm Australian, but I'm not.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Now, for those that are watching right now, I want you to imagine growing up in a small UK town where dreams often just remain as that. I mean, I can attest to that. I grew up in a small town in Zimbabwe where we had nothing but hopes and dreams from watching people on TV. So I don't know what Helena's situation was, but I do know what it's like to live in a city that's the size of a box. All right. So Helena not only dared to dream, but she also embarked on a global quest from New Zealand to Singapore. And then she helps to unlock the secret of personal transformation to those that she works with. Now, as a globally recognized coach, Helena has developed the Mind-Body Reboot method, which is guiding visionary leaders to profound personal breakthroughs. Today, we're going to dive into her past and also her unique methodologies, and also see how she's helping clients worldwide achieve lasting change. So I hope you can stay with us as we explore the remarkable journey of HelenaDay. Now, Helena, your journey starts in a small town in the UK. Tell us a little bit about what you remember of those times in that small town.
Taking myself right back there. Yep, small town in the UK. I was one of 5 children. And all around me, I was witnessing people who were settling for less. They were just living what they would probably class as quite average existences. And I had big dreams. I was a huge imaginer. I used to spend a portion of every single day imagining things, imagining worlds, imagining other places to be. And I always felt like a fish out of water. I always felt like there was something more for me. And so as soon as I could, and I spent years traveling, backpacking everywhere, looking for places in the world which were the least explored. And so I traveled around, and I eventually came back to the UK and ended up living in London. I wanted to go somewhere big. I wanted to go somewhere that people had bigger aspirations and bigger visions. And so I found myself in London, living in London, and still there was something missing. There was something missing. There was something I was chasing. It felt like a hole inside. And so I took a job, as I felt was laid out for me, 9-to-5 job, working in corporate, working my way up the ranks, and I lived in Amsterdam for a bit, and then I came back, lived in London for a bit, and I was getting promotions, and I was moving, and I was doing all of the things, all of the tick boxes, which I felt I should have been doing. And I realized at one point that I was really unhappy, and that I was here in this incredible multinational company, living in London. I own my own apartment. I had a partner. I was, had a life that by all intents and purposes looked great. But I felt there was something missing. And so I packed it all in, quit my job, and I persuaded my partner to quit his job, and we moved to New Zealand with literally 2 bags. And we landed in New Zealand, and we both luckily found work there, and we lived in New Zealand for a year and a half, and we loved it. We had a great time. And at the end of that year and a half, there was something that was calling me back to the UK. I think it was the length, the distance from New Zealand to London is quite a distance. And so I felt I needed to be a little bit closer to home. So we ended up moving back to London, again, going back into the corporate world. I got another job, was working in agencies, was working my way up, doing really, really well. And still, there was something missing. There was something, and I couldn't put my finger on it, something more. I used to spend my days with a notebook, just writing ideas about other things that I could be doing, business ideas I could have, different things that I wanted to study and learn. I felt like I had put myself in a box which didn't quite fit. And so, again, I decided this was it. Got to go, got to leave. So we upped sticks and we moved to New Zealand. We moved to Singapore and landed in Singapore. And again, this was somewhere new, and it filled me up again for a little while. I was somewhere new I could explore. There was adventure. And I got a job. I was working in a multinational. I was doing really, really well again. And still, I noticed that a little nagging feeling, that nagging of this isn't it. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. There's more, there's something more. You are not feeling completely fulfilled. And so I retrained. As a yoga instructor. I started teaching yoga. That wasn't for me. And then I discovered coaching. And this was where everything changed. And I didn't know before I made that leap from corporate life to being an entrepreneur and running my own coaching business that that's what I wanted to do. And that's something I really, really want to share with anyone who's listening who might be thinking, I don't know what I want to do. There's something else out there for me and I don't know what it is. And I can't do something because I don't know exactly what it is that I need to be doing. And I didn't know. But I had to go. I signed up for a coaching course and I took the first few modules. And that was when I realized that there was something about this which really, really called me. There was something that I felt that I was utilizing all of my skills in this field. And so I finished that coaching qualification and I just started getting clients. It was like a valve had opened, something magic was happening and people would just contact me. I had corporates, I had leaders reaching out to me, asking for coaching. I was amazed at how fast it was all moving. And so I quit my corporate job and moved into the work which I do now. And I'm a coach, but I'm a coach in quite a special field. So I've trained in many, 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 many modalities over the years since that first coaching course, since I realized that this was something I was so incredibly passionate about. I trained in neuroscience. I trained in subconscious rewiring work. I became a hypnotherapist. I trained in embodiment work. I trained in narrative coaching, all of these different fields. And I realized that really what prevents people from doing the things they really want to do is the stories that they tell themselves. And often those are the stories which they don't even know. They're the stories which sit under the surface They're the stories which are behind the curtain, as it was. And so those stories are the stories that I work with in my work with other people. I help them discover what it is that is really, really holding them back. What are those limitations? What are those stories which are keeping them feeling like they are stuck in a box which doesn't fit?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey, because wow, so many, highs and lows, but at least, it was in search and in pursuit of, that which seemingly is making you happy right now. But Helena, let's go back to the time when you were still growing up in that little town. You said you were one of 5 children. Was that the same scenario with all the other siblings?
No, all of my other siblings have been really content and happy to stay in the UK and live quite conventional career paths. None of them had this feeling, this drive that I had, where I felt that there was something really lacking and missing, and I felt like I had to search. It felt like those years there was a constant search for something, even though I didn't know what it was.
And obviously, what sort of conversations do they have now? Do they feel still content, or are they wishing they had maybe made the leap that you also did?
Well, the final part of my journey is that now I live in Bali. So I moved from Singapore to Bali, and I live here in the island of the gods. I have a wonderful, amazing villa. My children go to school in the jungle here. I have an incredible lifestyle. And so how do I think my siblings feel? I think they're all content in their own ways. I don't think the life that I live right now works for me. Absolutely. But it wouldn't be the life that works for everybody.
Absolutely. Now, maybe growing up, you would have not gotten the same sentiments with the siblings. What was it like at school or with the people that you would come across? I mean, obviously, since it was a small town, you probably meet the same person twice a day.
Yes. It was an interesting, I can't say I very much enjoyed my school years. I went to a state school, which they didn't encourage excellence. It was frowned on if students got top grades in the class. And so I always felt like I needed to blend in. And so I spent my whole school years feeling that I needed to go under the radar, which is one of the biggest patterns which I've had to work on through my own subconscious healing throughout my own life.
Absolutely. Now, so many people or so many kids are very impressionable. Okay, you would have maybe seen, like I was talking about TV. We would watch things on TV and would wish, oh my God, I wish I would be in those streets of New York or Melbourne or things like that. Were there any particular influences then, if it was not the family and if it was not the school? Would you have been looking up to some places for reference?
No, there was nowhere that I had as a reference point. There was no location that I had as a reference point. There was nobody I knew, even in my world, that was an entrepreneur. Everyone that I knew had stayed in a conventional career path and stayed in living in and around the UK, not too far from where I grew up. So I didn't have any frames of reference for the life that I now live. And back then, I would have thought it was completely impossible.
Absolutely. I mean, fish do not see the water that they swim in. And so many people just feel like wherever they are is all that is possible for them. And it's a good thing that you saw further. So you kept moving around, especially in jobs. What sort of industries were you working in? Because you did just mention it was corporate.
Yeah, so I worked for media companies. I worked for big multinational media companies doing marketing, doing communications. I worked for, when I moved to New Zealand, took that same career and again worked in creative agencies. And then when I came back to London again, I worked in creative agencies. So it was all very creative, all building, all in marketing, all in communications. And I could have stayed and lived that life and been relatively content. Relatively content. And I think that was always what the pull that I felt was, this is okay, but I could feel this pull. There was something more. There was something more that was pulling me. And I didn't know what it was. And I didn't have a frame of reference for it. And I think the first time I really started to understand, and where I think I laid some seeds for the life that I live now, is when I started traveling. So when I finished school and I just took off and traveled the world. And I think those were the first seeds for me of the fact that there was an entire world out there. And people doing lots of different things. And there were worlds where it was tropical and where I could live a life where I didn't have to wear any socks. And all of that was available. And I didn't know before I started really traveling that those things were available to me. But that was where I started opening the box of my mind to say, wow, there's an entire world out there.
Absolutely. And along the journeys you've been traveling with, as you have referenced, your partner at that time, and what was their perception to the moving around? Were they also in the same mindset? Because somebody would be like, okay, I think that's enough, or yeah, sure, let's jump on, let's explore something new.
That's a very interesting question. It's been definitely, I have been a driving force in the moving. And so my restlessness and my need to search and explore has definitely been the inspiration for us. But I think if you were to, where we have arrived at now is a place that is absolutely incredible for us right here in this moment. And so I think my partner would say that all of the moving has been worth it. But again, whenever you are moving with a partner, it can be very difficult to be absolutely on that same page at exactly that same time. And everything requires the ability to manage change and transition, which my personality am very, very good at. And my partner has had to learn the skills as we have changed up our lives many times, and then again, and then again. So I think they're fantastic skills to learn. Let's not check in with him and ask him.
Absolutely. Well, I was just looking at your track record. You have studied NLP and hypnotherapy. So maybe half of the time he was under and...
No, do not coach your family would be a recommendation for anybody out there. I certainly do not work with my husband or on my husband.
Great stuff. But obviously, talking of these disciplines, neuroscience, NLP, and hypnotherapy, it's now become the skill set and the tool set that you are bringing to the table. Now, how has all of these diverse fields sort of contributed to the development of some of your programs and how you work with people?
Yeah, it's been a steady stream of evolution. So at first I studied coaching, and then as I started working with clients, I realized there was a much deeper level that I needed to get to in order for them to get real lasting change, which led me to study really deeply the principles of the brain, neuroscience, and then led me to really explore hypnotherapy and other subconscious process work. And then after I started working with clients in a deeper kind of more subconscious shifting way, I recognized that actually it's not just the mind and the stories in our heads that need to shift. It's actually all of the embodied patterns, all of the stories that we hold within the muscles, within the fascia, within our organs. This is where they're stored at the deepest level. So that led me to the next stage of my learning. And then after that, I recognized that really, to get really lasting change, we have to know how to manage our nervous systems, because this is the first thing to react in situations. On our most basic instinctive level, our nervous systems respond first. When you go to cross a road, if you see a car coming towards you, the first thing, you're not thinking to yourself, I should get out the way. Shall I go left? Shall I go right? Your body just whips into action and it will move you. And so actually learning how to navigate and work and control the nervous system is one of the tools, the best tools that anyone can teach themselves for just handling life. They should teach it in schools. I don't know why it's not mandatory in every single school to learn how your nervous system works, and little simple tools and techniques that can help you to regulate yourself in a moment. So bringing all of this together is where my Mind Body Reboot program was birthed, which was actually is all of these different principles that people need to really have sustained change.
Absolutely. So this program walks people through a 5-day immersive, right? Maybe give us a glimpse into what people can expect, especially when they go on this transformative journey.
So the Mind Body Reboot is my signature one-to-one program. So that lasts 5 months. And so I work with people. Actually, I see them bi-weekly, and they come and we go through this whole journey about learning about how their nervous system responds, how their subconscious patterns are wired, how we can shift and change the stories in their minds so that they can get more of what they want and less of what they do not want. Because everything is possible to shift and change when you really continuously put in some commitment. And so I walk them through this journey over 5 months. I'm by their side and we're shifting and we're changing and we're recalibrating, because what we are at our core is patterns. As humans, we think we live lives, but we actually are just living this web of interconnected patterns. So we'll drop in and we'll clear up some patterns, and then we'll see the next level that needs to be cleared. And then we'll clear up those patterns, and then we'll see the next level. And then we'll put some tools in so that you can learn how to manage and move past and move through the next triggers that are coming up. Because we're just layers of an onion as humans, and we can just keep peeling and keep peeling and keep peeling. Depends how far you want to go.
Absolutely. And that is true. I mean, seriously, you eat a banana and it manifests as your ear. That's all systems and the way that, you know, the body actually works. Now, how does somebody recognize themselves that they are ready for this transformative journey? And as in, what do they need to see around them, you know, in order for them to raise their hand and say, you know what, I think I'm good and ready for this?
I don't think it's anything that they need to see around them. I think it is the commitment that they have to themselves, which is everything. If they're ready to commit to them and their own growth, if they're ready to invest and make it a priority to do the work, do the exercises, if they're ready to commit the energy required and the financial investment in this being the next level of growth for them, like this, it's all comes down to commitment. Are they ready to commit? Are they ready to say, okay, the life that I'm living is not where I want to be? And so it's going to take something for me, and I'm committed to myself to making something different happen.
Steady.
Because I am but a guide on the journey. They're the ones that have to do the work.
Absolutely. I mean, that's only fair enough, because, you know, most of the things that we end up doing in life, it has to be a journey that we need to travel on our own. But when people show up to you most of the time, what are they presenting with? Some people would maybe facing relationship problems, or their kids are not listening, or at work they're being missed out on promotions. What are the sort of common things that people need to now see around them that shows, I think it's time to take action?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Many clients come to work with me because either they're entrepreneurs and they've got to a stage in the business where they know that it has a lot more room to grow, but they actually know they're the ones that are standing in the way. They are the ones that are limiting themselves from that next level of growth. So they'll come to me if they're facing self-doubt, if they're facing limitations, or if they just have a big vision, which they're like, how? How is that even going to be possible? I want something and I don't know how I'm going to get there. And then I also work with lots of professionals who come to me who are facing exactly the same kinds of things. They're either thinking, you know what? Where I am doesn't feel fulfilled. And I know that I could be doing better in my career. I know that I could have more peace in my relationships. I know that I could be asking for more money, and yet I'm not. So it's that recognition that they are the ones standing in their own way, or there's a bigger vision for them that they aspire to. And they're like, okay, it's time to shift out some of the blind spots, because as humans, we all have blind spots. And yes, you can absolutely do some of this work on your own, 100%. But you will get to a point in your journey when, if you really, really want to up level, working with somebody else that can pick out those blind spots so quickly, so easily, helps you really make that accelerated growth.
Interesting. Now, a lot of high achievers usually end up becoming entrepreneurs or wanting to do things on their own and things of that nature. But one thing that really, really stops them in their tracks is imposter syndrome. All right. And it then manifests itself as procrastination. And before you know it, they then fail, in work. Do you also maybe address such an element, or is that something that you work with?
Absolutely. So I actually have a 14-day course, which is called Imposter Mastery, which you can find on my website. And that course takes people through the whole journey of working through the mind, the body, and the nervous system to really recalibrate themselves so that they can shift past these doubts. Because the journey of working with self-doubt is a journey. You're never going to get to a place where you never, ever have any doubt. Because if you are in a life where you want to up level, at every single up level, when you're ready for that next big leap, there's going to be more doubts that come up. Can I hold a bigger audience? Can I have more eyes on my work? Can I really be a more visionary leader? These things come up at the next stages. So having the tools to manage them, being able to use this as signals, and signals that you can welcome to say, oh, wow, okay, fantastic. This means I'm ready for the next up level, rather than it being a signal to retreat and step back and say, okay, no, I'm not ready for this. I think I'll go hide in my hole again. When we can learn those skills, like this is the gold dust. This is the magic. So yes, my course takes people on that journey. And in my one-to-one work, I'm always working with the doubting mind.
Absolutely. And usually people start doubting themselves because maybe, there's not that instant gratification in any of the work that we do, and there's that need for control and wanting things to be, in a perfect way, or to have a certain outcome based on what they read, binary sort of thinking. And I think that stops a lot of people from actual success in life. Now, Did you have an issue like that, or do you help people with things like that, with the struggle to just need to be in control of every situation, that comes along?
Yeah, so there are many, many different nuances to imposter syndrome. And one of them is definitely people who want to be in control, who are seeking perfection, and that stops them as well. But there's also people who doubt themselves because they doubt their capabilities, and they doubt that they can actually take the next steps in what they're doing. But it can also show up when people think about the success they want and then doubt that they can actually have that much exposure, or they doubt that actually when they get to the next level, they may become disconnected, or they may look like their life may look so different that is it something they actually want. So there's so many nuances around self-doubt and imposter syndrome and how it shows up. And I help people recognize and understand what the underlying cause is for them, because it is different for different people. And when they can really start to understand for themselves what it is which is causing the doubt, that is where we really start to create the shifts and the changes.
Absolutely. Now, Helena, somebody might be watching this and thinking, well, but I can't leave where I'm staying right now. My parents, my family needs me, my community needs me, my country needs me, or I can't be anything that I can see other people doing. And they might start doubting that all of this actually works on human beings. All right. Is there, and I know you've guided, a lot of people through these personal transformations. Has there been a particular story that actually stands out and can resonate with the viewer to the effects of the work that you're doing? I mean, you don't have to mention names, but if you can give a case study of somebody that went through this, program and the transformation that they actually received.
Absolutely. So I'm going to call her Clara. So Clara came to me. She was running what used to be a very, very successful business, but her business had kind of dwindled and was not doing as well as it could. And she had a lot of doubts coming up in that space. Can I bring the business back? What's wrong with me? Can I go out and sell? I'm scared to sell. All of these doubts which were surfacing in her system. And so we did some really, really deep work around what that looks like and what the stories were that were showing up for her. We looked at where the core of those came from. And we started doing some deep subconscious shifting work. And there was a lot going on for her around her capability. She'd had some situations, some triggers in her past, which had caused her to question her capability. But yet there was a part of her that knew still, that believed that she could do it. So she had this conflict all the time, an internal turmoil going on all the time. And the body and the brain can't hold two conflicting beliefs. Always there's one which is deeper and more profound. And so our job was just to retrain and refocus her, to really be able to tap into the part of her that did believe, that knew that she could do it, that believed that she could grow that business, that had faith in her capabilities, that knew that she could up level, that she could grow the business. And guess what? When she managed to do that constantly and consistently, and she managed to integrate the parts of her that were causing her doubt, because it's not a case of repressing those. It's not a case of pushing those down and pretend they don't exist, because they just come back and tap you on the shoulder and say, but did you listen? Did you hear? Did you hear? I got a message for you. And so when we did the deep work around that, and she managed to have the strategies to refocus herself constantly and continually on the part that knew that she could do it, that is where the magic happened. And her business grew exponentially from that point. she had the most miraculous miracles happening. And she would message me and she would say, oh, this client just messaged, they've got this huge piece of work and they just asked me for it. Then I had this client come in and her job was really to tap into all of the evidence that life was showing her, that things had shifted, that things had changed. And so from that point, her business grew to what it was doing the previous year, which was just covering her costs, to actually growing into a multi-six-figure business, which meant that she could have the freedom which she wanted, to be able to live the life that she really wanted to live and live it the way that she wanted to live it. Because for everyone, that's different.
Absolutely. And it looks like Clara just needed a bit of clarity.
She needed clarity, but she also needed to understand her triggers, and she needed to integrate the parts of herself which were causing her doubt. And then she needed to be able to refocus and have strategies and skills that helped her to refocus continually, that helped her to regulate her nervous system in those moments where some of the old doubt might resurface. And then when she had those, she has now the strategy and toolkit for the rest of her life. These are skills which, as I said, they should teach in school because they're fundamental to helping us live in a more empowered way.
Absolutely. Now, if somebody is looking to maybe get started and have that experience that Clara had, where would they head to on the internet, to find you?
Yeah, they can head to my website, HelenaDay.com. And I have a quiz on there, which they can do to help them unearth their subconscious success profile. So they can start there and they can start to uncover which are the key doubts and blockers and limitations which are holding them back. They can start there. And if they're ready to dive straight in, they can do my 14-day imposter mastery course, which is a literal gold in there around how to manage self-doubt and really help yourself go from a life where you're living, where things are mediocre, to a life where you are literally creating miracles.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that. I will definitely put all those links in the show notes so that people can get started. Now, Helena, when we started, you spoke about the girl that seemingly didn't find, satisfaction in everything that she was doing and the environments that she was in and things of that nature. And it looks like you went on a journey of self-discovery and, brought some people along the journey. And now you're helping others do and have the same. Could we say that you have found what you were looking for?
You know what? There's never an end to the journey. There's never a finish line that we get to and we say, okay, right now I'm here. I've done everything. Complete. Yes. Perfect. So at this moment in time, I am exactly where I am supposed to be and I'm doing exactly what lights me up. But I am a constant process of evolution. So if this is what will still suit me in 2 years, in 5 years, I don't know. As I evolve, everything around me evolves. So I have found a lot about myself on this journey. I've discovered so much about who I am. And I think that's the key journey that any of us who are interested in evolution go on. How can we discover more about ourselves? And then how can we use that knowledge to live a life where we just feel more at peace with everything?
Absolutely. I obviously believe in life. We're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. And in order for us to be able to live the best life that is the best for us, we need to learn. And most of these journeys and some of these expeditions that we go on are the ones that allow us and afford us those lessons that we need to bring back home. And once we've discovered that, hey, we can share those lessons with others and maybe have a good story to tell on the Online Prosperity Show. So I'm really excited about this. But if we may have created this and then come across a a young girl who is in some village somewhere right this moment, right now, what sort of words would you give to her on her quest to go and find that which she thinks she needs to look for?
If you dream it, if you believe it, you can do it. You're only constrained by your own limitations, by the stories that you tell yourself.
I like that, because so many people, yeah, you're right. You know, that which they see is that which they then conclude is all there is available for them. Yet the universe is abundant and you can be, do, and have whatever you want in any place that you so wish. Now, obviously, you have mentioned that where you are right now is the best, but maybe you might want to tell us what's next. Do you know what, or is there anything that you're at least working on that we can, jump on board for now that you've, brought us into your world, Helena?
What's next? That's a beautiful question. What is upcoming? Running more retreats in Bali.
Absolutely.
And I also do lots of work in corporations and lead lots of nervous system mastery workshops. And what's next? So that will be next this year. And then who knows? Upcoming. Who knows? Every year is a constant process of recalibration.
Absolutely. As the days go by in the calendar, we're creating and relating to what's in front of us. And I thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. I mean, your life story and your experience, obviously for others, it might read like a tale, that's impossible, but you've lived it and you're literally sending the elevator down to those that are still at the bottom to say, hey, you too can rise up to the top. So thank you so much for having gone through that and also sharing your journey with us on the Online Prosperity Show today.
Yeah, beautiful. I just want to finish by saying I remember distinctly a moment where I sat in my house in London and I had written the life that I live today, and it was an impossibility for me. It was an impossibility. It was completely outside of my frame. And I was like, if I ever managed to get to that, well, I couldn't, because it's never possible. Who could ever aspire to live that? And so from the other side of that, I just want to say that it really, really is possible. And all it takes for most of us is just getting out of our own ways.
Absolutely. I quite like it. I mean, I think one of these days, if you still have that book or that page that you wrote, you frame it, it might actually fetch a bundle, but fantastic. For those that are watching, thank you so much for taking it this far. And if you're eager to jump on your own path of transformation, be sure to visit Helena's website. I will put the links in the show notes below, but it's simply HelenaDay.com. or follow her on Instagram, Helena Rose Day. And I will also put all those links so that you can get started on that journey. And there is something that you can also check out, her Imposter Mastery course, for a deep dive into overcoming self-doubt. Now, if you are keen on more information like this, stay tuned for our next episode, where we're going to be exploring ideas to cultivate a happier existence. And if you found today's discussion valuable, please share this podcast with somebody who could benefit from the story that Helena has lived, and maybe that could be their story too one day. I want you to remember one thing: the journey to prosperity begins with a single step, and I encourage you to take yours today. Bye for now.